Hey, everyone, I'm Julie. I'm 35 years old, working as a marketing executive, and from the outside, it probably looked like I had the perfect life. I was married to Liam, a successful lawyer, and we lived in a beautiful house in the suburbs. Our weekends were filled with brunches with friends and relaxing together. Everything seemed great until Liam's sister Cheryl lost her job and needed a place to stay. I wasn't thrilled about the idea, but I thought, family is family, right? I quickly realized that letting Cheryl stay with us was a big mistake. At first, the problems were small, almost easy to brush off. For example, I noticed that my favorite sweater would disappear, only to turn up later in Cheryl's laundry. When I asked her about it, she'd just laugh and say, "Oh, I thought it was mine," with a fake laugh that really irritated me. I tried to let it go, thinking it wasn't worth a big fight over something small. But then things got worse. One night, Liam and I were getting ready for a date, and I went to grab my go-to lipstick. It was gone. I stormed into Cheryl's room, and sure enough, there she was, wearing my lipstick. I couldn't believe it. "What the hell, Cheryl?" I snapped, furious that she had taken something of mine without asking. Instead of apologizing, she had the nerve to act offended and said, "Calm down, Julie. It's just lipstick. We're sisters now, remember?" I turned to Liam, hoping for support, but he just sighed and said, "Babe, don't make a big deal out of nothing. Cheryl's going through a tough time." That's when I started feeling like something was really off. Liam wasn't seeing what I was seeing, and it made me feel alone in my own home. But the situation only got worse from there. A little while later, I started noticing that money was disappearing from the house. At first, it was small amounts, $40 here, $70 there. I brought it up to Liam, thinking he would take it seriously. Instead, he barely looked up from his phone and said, "Maybe you just forgot you spent it or miscounted." I couldn't believe it. My own husband was acting like I was imagining things, like I couldn't trust my own memory. The final straw came when I went to my desk drawer to check my emergency stash of money. I had $1,000 in there, but now it was gone. I knew Cheryl had to be the one who took it. I confronted her in the kitchen and asked, "Have you been taking money from my desk?" She looked at me like I had just accused her of the worst crime in the world. "Are you seriously accusing me of stealing after everything your family has done for me?" she asked, as if she was the victim. Before I could even respond, Liam walked in and saw Cheryl crying. She immediately turned to him and said, "Julie thinks I'm a thief. How could she say that?" And just like that, I became the bad guy. Liam put his arm around Cheryl and glared at me. "Jesus, Julie, what's wrong with you?" "Cheryl would never do that," he said, taking her side completely. That night, as I lay in bed next to a husband who now felt like a stranger, I knew I had to do something. No one believed me, not Liam, not Cheryl, so I realized I had to take matters into my own hands. If no one else was going to help me, I needed to get proof. Little did I know that what I would uncover next would turn my entire life upside down in ways I never could have imagined. So, stay tuned, because this story is far from over. What happened next changed everything. I was tired of feeling like I was losing control in my own home. I couldn't take it anymore. It was time to catch Cheryl in the act and put an end to the mess she was causing. I knew I had to do something smart, so I went to an office supply store and bought some invisible ink. My plan was simple but clever. Once I got home, I marked some $40 and $70 bills with the invisible ink. You couldn't see it with your eyes, but under a UV light, the ink would glow, showing who had taken the money. I carefully placed the marked bills in my desk drawer, making sure to count them exactly. Then, I set up a small hidden camera inside a picture frame on my bookshelf. The camera had a clear view of the desk, so I would know for sure if Cheryl was stealing. Now, all I had to do was wait. That evening, the tension in the house was thick. Cheryl was her usual self, talking loudly about some new guy she had met, and Liam was listening to her every word like she was the most interesting person in the world. I quietly pushed my food around on my plate, trying to keep my cool. I was frustrated and angry, but I didn't want to cause a scene. Liam noticed my silence and asked, "You okay, babe?" I forced a smile and lied, "Just tired from work." Cheryl smirked at me and said, "Maybe you should take a vacation." All that stress isn't good for your skin. Her comment made me want to scream, but I bit my tongue, holding back my anger. The next few days felt like they dragged on forever. Every time I came home, I rushed to check the camera and count the money in the drawer. For the first few days, nothing happened, and I started to wonder if maybe Cheryl was being more careful. But on day 5, I finally got what I was waiting for. I watched the footage with my heart pounding. There she was, Cheryl, rummaging through my desk drawer like she owned the place. She boldly took 4 $50 bills and even had the nerve to fix her hair in my mirror before leaving the room. I was shaking with anger, but I knew I had to stay calm and handle this smartly. Later that day, I found Cheryl in the kitchen. "Hey, can we talk?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. She turned to me with an innocent smile and said, "Sure, what's up?" I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I know you've been taking money from my desk." Her expression changed quickly. First, her eyes widened in surprise, but then they narrowed as she tried to cover it up. "Excuse me? Are you accusing me of something?" she asked, acting shocked. I didn't let her play her games. "Cut the act, Cheryl." "I have proof," I said, trying to stay calm. "If you admit it now and pay me back, we can keep this quiet." Cheryl sneered at me and said, "Otherwise what? You're going to tell Liam? Good luck with that. He'd never believe you over his baby sister." I took a step closer and said, "Are you sure about that? Because I have you on camera." For a moment, I saw fear flicker in her eyes, but she quickly forced a laugh. "Nice try, Julie."
"You're bluffing," she said.
"Am I? Are you willing to risk your relationship with Liam on that?" I asked, not backing down. Cheryl's confidence faltered for a second, but then she stormed out of the kitchen, slamming the door behind her. I leaned against the counter, my heart racing. I had given her a chance to come clean and make things right, but she chose to lie and deny everything. If that's how she wanted to play it, fine. I was done being nice. The annual family barbecue was coming up that weekend. Liam's parents, cousins, and even our nosy neighbors would be there. It would be the perfect time to finally expose Cheryl and show everyone the truth. I had tried to handle things quietly, but now it was time for the truth to come out, and Cheryl wouldn't be able to hide behind her lies any longer. I smiled to myself, imagining what was about to happen. Cheryl thought she was so smart, but she had no idea what was coming. By the end of Wednesday night, everyone would finally know the truth about her. I had been planning this moment for days, and it was time for Cheryl's lies to come crashing down. When the day finally arrived, I was a bundle of nerves. I had practiced what I was going to say over and over in my head. As the guests started arriving for the family barbecue, I put on my best fake smile and tried to act like everything was normal. I played the role of the perfect hostess, making sure everyone felt welcome. Meanwhile, Cheryl was in her element, floating around the party, laughing loudly at every joke. She was acting like she didn't have a care in the world, but I noticed her glance at me a few times. She was probably wondering if I would actually follow through on my threat. Once everyone had arrived and the food was served, I knew it was time. My heart was pounding, but I was ready. I picked up my glass and clinked it to get everyone's attention. The chatter in the room died down as people turned to look at me. "Hey, everyone," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've got a little presentation I'd like to share." Liam frowned and asked, "Babe, what are you doing?" I ignored him and connected my laptop to the TV. "I've noticed some money has been going missing lately," I said, looking around the room. "And I think we all deserve to know the truth." The room grew silent as I pressed play on the video. In clear HD, Cheryl appeared on the screen, sneaking into my office and pocketing cash from my desk. Gasps echoed through the room as everyone watched in disbelief. Cheryl's face went pale. "That's not what it looks like," she stammered, trying to explain herself, but I wasn't finished yet. I pulled out a small UV light from my pocket and walked over to her purse. "Mind if I check something?" I asked. Before she could say anything, I dumped the contents of her purse onto the table. Bills scattered everywhere. I shined the UV light on them, and the invisible ink marks lit up. "Funny how all this marked money from my desk ended up in your purse, Cheryl," I said, my voice steady. The room erupted. Liam's mom started crying, his dad was shouting, and the neighbors were whispering to each other. Cheryl collapsed into sobs. "I'm sorry. I have a gambling problem," she cried. "I needed the money to pay off debts." I turned to Liam, expecting him to finally see the truth, but instead, his face was filled with rage at me. "How dare you," he hissed. "You set up my sister and humiliated her in front of everyone." I stood there, stunned. "Are you serious? She's been stealing from us for months," I said, trying to make him see reason, but Liam's mind was made up. "Get out." "Now," he said coldly. "What? This is my house too," I protested, shocked by his reaction. "Not anymore. I want a divorce." "Pack your things and leave," he demanded. I looked around the room, hoping someone would stand up for me, but all I saw were blank, shocked faces. No one said a word. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. Tears welled up in my eyes as I ran upstairs, grabbing a bag and stuffing it with clothes. My heart was broken, but I knew I had no choice but to leave. As I walked out the door, I glanced back one last time. My entire world had just fallen apart, but I knew deep down that I would come out stronger on the other side. Even though it felt like I had lost everything, I had finally stood up for myself, and that was the first step toward a new beginning. I could still hear Cheryl's dramatic sobs and Liam's soft, comforting voice as I left the house. "It's okay, sis. We'll get you help." "Julie's gone now," he said, as if I was the problem. I slammed the door behind me, feeling like my whole world was crumbling. I had exposed the truth, yet somehow I was the one being punished. As I drove away, the reality of the situation sank in. This wasn't the end, it was only the beginning of my fight for justice. That night, I went to my best friend Teresa's house. She opened the door, and as soon as I stepped inside, I broke down and told her everything. Teresa was furious. "That manipulative little witch," she shouted. "And Liam? He's lost his mind." I nodded, feeling numb. "I know. I can't believe it either," I said quietly. The next morning, I knew I had to start taking control of my life. I called in sick to work and set up a meeting with a divorce lawyer. When I told her the whole story, she shook her head in disbelief. "We'll file for divorce on the grounds of emotional abuse," she said. "And we'll make sure to highlight how Liam defended a thief in your own household." I agreed, feeling a small sense of relief. At least I was doing something to move forward. In the weeks that followed, I buried myself in work. It was the only way I knew how to cope. I worked long hours, staying late at the office, and put all my energy into my projects. My boss noticed the change in me. One day, he called me into his office. "Julie, I don't know what sparked this fire in you, but your work has been outstanding lately," he said. "How would you feel about heading up our new digital marketing division?" I could barely hold back the tears of relief. "I'd love to. Thank you so much," I said, grateful for the opportunity and the distraction. Meanwhile, karma was catching up with Cheryl and Liam. Word quickly spread that Cheryl's gambling problem had spiraled out of control. She had even been caught embezzling money from her new job and was now facing serious criminal charges. As for Liam, defending Cheryl had backfired on him in a big way. His colleagues at the law firm were whispering behind his back, and he had lost a major case because he was so distracted. As a result, the firm demoted him to junior partner. About 5 months after the disaster at the family barbecue, I was signing the lease on my new apartment. I had finally found a place of my own and was excited to start this new chapter of my life. Just as I finished the paperwork, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Liam. "Julie, can we talk?" "I made a huge mistake," he wrote. I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "You're just realizing that now?" I thought to myself. Liam continued. "Please, I want to apologize. Maybe we can work things out." I felt a rush of anger, but also a sense of freedom. I didn't need him anymore. I had moved on. I typed back, "Not a chance, Liam. I've moved on. Don't contact me again." With that, I hung up the phone, feeling lighter than I had in months. That night, I decided to celebrate. I treated myself to a fancy dinner at a nice restaurant, something I hadn't done in a long time. Afterward, I visited a local animal shelter and adopted a scruffy little rescue dog. I named him Justice, fitting for the journey I had been on. Justice and I went home to my new apartment, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. A few weeks later, I threw a housewarming party to celebrate my new life. Teresa and a few close friends came over, filling the apartment with laughter and warmth. At one point during the party, Teresa raised her glass for a toast. To Julie, the strongest and bravest woman I know. You stood up for yourself, and you came out on top.
We're all so proud of you, she said, smiling.
I looked around at my true friends in my cozy new home, and tears welled up in my eyes this time. They were happy tears. Thanks, everyone, I said, my voice a little shaky. When Liam kicked me out, I thought my life was over. But really, it was just the beginning. I've learned who my real friends are, and more importantly, I've learned how strong I am. As the party continued, I realized that I had finally left the pain behind. My life was moving forward, and I had built something new for myself. The struggles had made me stronger, and I was ready for whatever came next. As the party started winding down, Teresa pulled me aside. Any regrets about exposing Cheryl? She asked. I paused for a moment, then shook my head. Nope. It was hard, but I'd do it all over again. No one has the right to steal from you or make you feel crazy for standing up for yourself, I replied. That night, as I curled up in bed with Justice, my new dog, resting at my feet, I had a realization. Sometimes losing everything is the only way to truly find out what you're made of. And me? I discovered I'm stronger than I ever thought possible. I faced a tough situation and came out of it more resilient than before. Even though this part of my story is over, I'm curious to hear from you. If you were in my shoes, would you have exposed Cheryl at the family barbecue or handled it privately? Do you think public humiliation was justified, or did I go too far? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective could help someone else going through a similar situation. And if you enjoyed this journey with me, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories and the lessons I've learned along the way. Trust me, I've got plenty more stories to tell. Life can be wild, but we can navigate it together.